Hello, and good day to everyone listening. I just wanted to say that I hope you're having a blessed day. Also, just wanted to let you know that if you love true crime, then you're definitely in the right place. I hope you enjoy, and as always, thank you for joining in. One of the most infamous crimes that could have ever been committed by two children. A unique motive, and one girl's fate, which was almost fatal. I'm Gavin Gabriel, and this is the horrifying attack and stabbing of Slenderman. Before we get to the events, there is some background to be covered. Slenderman is a fictional entity created on the Something Awful online forums on a 2009 Photoshop paranormal image contest. The Slenderman myths were later expanded upon by a number of other people, who eventually created fan fictions and artistic depictions of the entity. There have even been multiple mobile video games that feature him as the antagonist. Slenderman is a tall, thin character with a featureless white face and head. He is depicted as wearing a black suit and is sometimes shown with tentacles growing out of his back. According to the Slenderman myths, the entity can cause amnesia, bouts of coughing, and paranoid behavior in individuals. He is also often depicted hiding in forest, and sometimes even shown with a child companion. With that background done, it's time for quite an interesting event. Now time for the real life story. On May 30th, 2014, three girls were having a sleepover to celebrate Morgan Geyser's birthday. Peyton Lautner, Anissa Wire, and Morgan Geyser all seemed like your average 12-year-old girls at first glance. However, Peyton had no idea what Morgan and Anissa were soon planning for her. The next day, on May 30th, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the girls were left at a park by Morgan's mother to hang out. However, it would have been best if she had stayed to watch over them. Morgan and Anissa lured Peyton into a forest. Unexpectedly, Morgan pinned Peyton to the ground and stabbed her 19 times in the arms, legs, and torso with a 5-inch long blade. 2 wounds were to major organs. One missed a major artery of the heart by less than a millimeter, and another went through her diaphragm, cutting into her liver and stomach. Surprisingly to Peyton, Anissa had also planned this attack. Morgan and Anissa lied to Peyton by telling her to lie down while they go get help, which did not happen. Afterwards, Peyton dragged herself to a nearby road, where she was thankfully found by a bike rider that called 911. 5 hours later, Wire and Geyser were apprehended near Interstate 94 at Steinhaffel's furniture store after walking 4.9 miles. The knife used in the stabbing was in the bag they carried. The girls revealed that their goal was to meet Slenderman at his mansion, they called Slender Mansion, in the Nicolet National Forest, roughly a 100-mile hike from their location. During the interviews with the girls, Morgan was described as feeling no empathy for stabbing the victim, and claims that she even counted how many times she stabbed Peyton, which could have been due to her poor mental health, since she was soon diagnosed with schizophrenia. While Anissa, on the other hand, was described as feeling guilty for her actions in the attack, even though she admitted telling Morgan, and I quote, "Go ballistic, go crazy." Despite these things, both felt the attack was needed to appease Slenderman. They claimed that they had been planning the stabbing for months. Peyton left the hospital 7 days after her attack. She returned to school in September of 2014. Anissa and Morgan, on the other hand, were found not guilty by mental disease and were committed to mental health institutions for sentences of 25 years to life and 40 years to life. After 7 years, Wire was granted early release and will be under supervision until age 37. Let's take a moment to talk about Geyser's mental state to better understand her. While growing up, Geyser experienced many hallucinations, such as ghosts, colors melting down walls, and imaginary friends. One hallucination that occurred often was of a man Geyser named It, whose body was the color of smoke and ink that stood behind her in mirrors or shifted around corners similar to that of Slenderman. After the arrest, Geyser's mother, Angie, stated she became floridly psychotic. Correctional officers saw Geyser talking to herself often, pretending to be a cat, and keeping ants as pets. She saw unicorns, as well as had continual conversations with Slenderman and other fictional characters, such as Severus Snape. In the fall of 2014, Geyser was moved to Winnebago Mental Health Institution to determine if she would be competent enough to stand trial. They diagnosed Geyser on October 22nd, 2014 with early onset childhood schizophrenia. However, instead of treatment and medication, they focused on explaining the law to Geyser to prepare her for trial. Nearly half a year later, Geyser was found competent enough to stand trial. Geyser's schizophrenia was continually left untreated for 19 months, leading her to remain in a state of psychosis, or out of touch with reality. In December, she was sent back to Winnebago and given antipsychotics, which later allowed Geyser to feel remorse after clearing her mind. On March 23rd, 2016, Geyser was sent back to jail with the medication, where she rapidly deteriorated. However, after a suicide attempt, Geyser was transferred back to Winnebago. Since the incident, there has been significant news coverage about it, as well as documentaries showcasing the families and friends of the victim, along with them also showing where the perpetrators are in life after their fate had been decided. In 2019, Peyton finally spoke out about what happened on ABC News, telling the world, and I quote, "I shouldn't be alive after what happened." And yet, to this day, Slenderman still remains an iconic figure in pop culture. But whenever he is brought up, this subject always seems to follow after him. I believe the moral of the story is that you should never confuse fantasy with reality when you take into account that this is why these events took place. Thank you for listening. We hope you learned something new. Remember to share this story with friends and family. And, as always, thank you for watching.